I got some thumbs up from at least one of you. So that is good. If you can't hear me, I'm not sure. Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody to Southern California PRIA event. Thank you guys so much for being here, either in person or virtually. I'd like to welcome everyone. And just in case you don't know us, I'm Jamie Palma. I am with the Los Angeles County Register Recorder, co-chair of PRIA representing the public industry. And my co-chair is?
I'm Eugene Cisneros with Co-File. Real quick housekeeping items. Brian Johnson, mute your laptop. Just in general, please mute your laptops. And if you're in the room, especially mute your laptops. You're trying to get on Teams, get a little echo. The other thing is, of course, your phones. Mute your phones inside of here. And then when you are talking in the mic in front of and here in the office, make sure you talk directly in the mic. It's very sensitive. And back to you.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and actually welcome Mr. Dean Logan up to the podium. He's going to just give some introduction and opening remarks to start us off.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Dean Logan. I'm the Registrar Recorder County Clerk for Los Angeles County. So I enjoyed some southern direction traffic getting down here this morning, but it's great to see you all here and appreciate you taking the time for this. I want to thank Eugene and Jamie for the work that they put into putting the agenda together and for getting our panelists here just on time. And also want to thank First American for hosting us at this great facility. I was trying to remember when I was here last, and it was for another one of these meetings. And I have fond memories of just the design of this location and the everything that it represents. So appreciate First American hosting us. Want to recognize some of their principals who are with us today. We have Calvin Powell, who is the CIO for the Data and Analytics Division. We have Garrett Rogers, Senior Counsel in the back here. Chris Holtzman, Vice President for Underwriting, so in the back. And Nicole Harold, Product Director here. Okay, they are all taking up the back there. And then we also have Tracy Wilson, who is the Director for the Government Section for First American. So thanks again for having us here. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to make a few opening remarks before we kick things off, just kind of from context, and also want to welcome the people who are here virtually. I'm glad we were able to do that. We're still in this environment. This is the second time that we've met in person since we all experienced the big shutdown of COVID, and evidenced by the fact that we are half in Teams and half in the room. We've all learned how to do our work in a very different way as a result of that. And in some respects, many respects, I would argue, we're still learning how to do that in a hybrid environment, how to make sure that we're serving customers in a way that's efficient and effective, and also equitable, because not everybody has the ability to jump on a Teams meeting or to do a title search from their home or from their office. So we still need those in-person services, but we balance those against a growing demand for quick responsive service online as well. We're also, no secret to anybody in this room, but experiencing the impacts of an economic downturn, but also history tells us that eventually that is going to make a turnaround. And at least speaking from the public sector side of this partnership, one of the things we're facing is, as the state and our counties are grappling with budget reductions, we're grappling with how do we maintain and sustain our staffing levels and our service levels, in recognition that we need to be sure that we still have well-trained, capable staff, so that when that uptick comes back, that we have the capacity to meet the service needs and the timeframes that the industry and the public expects. So a lot to grapple with there. We're dealing with some policy issues that I think everybody here is also familiar with, kind of the balance of how do we balance the need for public records and a clear chain of title against growing desire and demand for privacy and protection of various people in different job classifications or different demographics, and how do we do that and make sure that we still meet our legal responsibility and maintain the public's trust that there is a record of title, and that that when and if that needs to be discoverable, that it's available there. Likewise, we're seeing some ambiguity in this concept between what is truly a public record versus what is subject to a public records request, right? So, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. We're going to hear about some emerging trends in technology, the impact of artificial intelligence, both the good and the bad of that, what we can do to leverage that in a positive direction, but how can we also be sure that we are being cautious of making sure that that isn't something that increases the likelihood of fraud or a damage to the people we serve. This whole idea of blockchain and introducing that into the recording process is a hot topic, and just related to that, just the general concept of electronic certification. So all of that to say that for me, that underscores the importance of this kind of partnership and the uniqueness of bringing the public and the private partners together periodically at a local level, but also at a national level, where all of these same topics are being discussed at the national conferences, taking advantage of those that are able to go to those conferences to bring it back into this room for those of us who are here local, and to maintain a conversation. Because the reality, at least from my perspective, is change is going to be constant, and we're going to be wrestling with these issues nonstop. And to the extent that we can seize them as opportunities to enhance our partnership, but also to better serve the people that we represent, this forum is important for doing that. So I want to welcome you to the Southern PRIA chapter of 2024. And again, thanks to Eugene and Jamie, and I'll turn it back to you, and we'll get going.
Great. Come on, sir. Come on back here. Come on back.
Keeping up
Eugene.
with the chat too. So.
Oh, yes. Oh, so
So if you have
yeah,
questions, yes.
virtually, if you guys do have questions, you can put them in the chat. We're trying to track them. If not, though, we'll follow up because we'll have them all saved after the meeting. But now you wanted to talk a little bit about the spring conference and some things some takeaways, right?
Yes. So we have, I've been associated with PRIA since its inception back in, 20 plus years ago, along with Ms. Val. So it's a great organization. They have 2 events a year. They have a winter conference and they have a summer conference. We just had a winter conference in South Carolina. We had Tracy attend, we had Val attend. And I just want to get your feedback. Is there any takeaways that you had from the conference that you can share with us? I think Chris was there. Were you there as well? Want to pick your brain too? So.
And we also brought David Gonzalez with us.
David was there too.
Yeah.
David was
So
there.
I would say what really stood out for us in San Diego was a pretty significant focus on fraud, real estate fraud, not just deed fraud, but all the types of real estate fraud that are happening that we read about, in addition to the ever increasing amount of redactions that are happening state to state with the recorded documents, and seeing some of the unintended consequences of those redactions from the county's perspective, and the kind of the level of effort having to be put in for the implementation of those. I think those are the two significant things that is really, we're feeling the focus from our side.
Yeah, I can say that the PRIA Winter Conference, do I need this?
No, you actually.
Okay. Okay. The PRIA Winter Conference is a great way because you're away from your day-to-day. And I love PRIA in the collaboration that we can talk while we're on our way to the social, that we can, it's like you solve problems on the way to an event or in the elevator or in the hallway by just talking about them, and you have the freedom to be able to do that. I love going to PRIA. I learned so much. My takeaway from PRIA this time was the privacy rules, the Daniels Law, and the burden that's going to fall on the counties. And, you know, as a title company, we're obviously very cognizant of all the same things we're following. You're going to hear from Garrett, you're going to hear from Calvin, all the technology and the legal things, but those are issues to us as well, and solving them together. I think learning about that, understanding what your challenges are, then as from the private sector, we can try and help. But the privacy, the redaction, and it seems to always fall in the counties. It really always does. And we're here to help. So that's just my takeaway from PRIA Winter.
And you know, Eugene, I think this was was this the first year that you guys did it remotely?
No.
Or, okay. Well, I did attend remote, and I was surprised how intriguing and interesting it was. I had not heard all of the information, excuse me, about the redacting and the shielding. So I was like, whoa, how important and how interesting. So just from the remote side.
Yes. David or add?
Nothing really to add. Like Val, I was very surprised with all the different
Mhm.
ways in which you are hearing the approaches for redaction, not much consistent. Just so many different approaches. That was very intriguing.
Oh, real quick, keep that
Fraud was very much a hot topic.
as a council underwriter, national, the inconsistencies are there. So that's why I think PRIA is a great platform because we can all get on the same page. Do you see it leading to a consensus with potentially like a white paper or anything like that?
I'm not sure. I know there's a lot of different groups looking at this, like the Uniform Law Commission, for example,
Well,
was
ULA.
exploring the concept of redaction, and that, in theory, could give somewhat a uniformity across the country. But yeah, consistency is helpful for sure. But to your point, PRIA is a great place to get together and share these ideas, share what's happening in your state or your locale, and really, work together.
How many PRIAs have you been to?
Since about 2019, probably pretty consistent virtually and in person.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Mr. Gonzalez, any comments?
I think for me, it was interesting to see how the laws varied so much state to state, and that there was some states where you had to apply for the redaction and it expired and you had to renew. There was just so many variations of the law that it made it very confusing to follow. So I think some uniformity would be great.
It was good to see, though, that in some states, the Secretary of State or the DOJ have actually provided oversight.
And we are going to jump on that because, we have Daniel's Law. We have a panel later on, but we are going to go a little bit deeper on AB 1785 and how it impacts California. So I do want to remind that we do have a summer conference at PRIA in Cleveland. So save the dates, August 20th and 22nd. So just want to throw that out there. I plan to be there. I know other folks here in the room will be there, but it's a great opportunity just to network and learn even on a national level. So that's my plug-in for the national side.
All right, making a quick transition here. Let's see if everything I learned on the techie side I can put into play here. All right, I'm gonna start. Yeah, so we're gonna transition to our lovely panel. And this, I did no, Jamie, hold on. I started with your slide first, Calvin. I did the wrong slide. I'm gonna go in order here. So first is the art 1466. Okay, but I'm going to introduce the panelists first, and then I'll get this going. So this group up here is going to talk briefly about some really cool technologies, whether they're in place now at the private and public sector or things that might be coming on the horizon. So I'm going to introduce them and then kind of help them transition, but we're going to go in order, starting with Ms. Rosa Chavez. She's the Senior Deputy Recorder at the Orange County Clerk Recorders. Rosa. And then we have Antoinette Garrett. She is the Principal Deputy at the Riverside Assessor Clerk Recorder. We have Val Hanfield, who is the Chief Deputy at San Diego Recorder County Clerk. Welcome. Have Monique Blakely, who is the Assistant Register Recorder County Clerk of Los Angeles. And then we have Lisa Anderson, who's the Assistant Assessor Clerk Recorder, Riverside County. And Dean mentioned, but I'll introduce again, Calvin Powell, who is the Senior VP and Division CIO here at First American. So representation across the board. So our first two presenters, let me start this show here. Are going to just give brief county updates on the AB 1466 restrictive covenant project. As you guys all know, that law passed a few years back, requiring all California county recorders to go back and image and redact any discriminatory language from all of our documents if it's found. So a lot of the counties have already gotten a pretty good start on their projects. LA, we're still working on that. We're working with a vendor to hopefully kick ours off this summer. So maybe next time we meet, I can tell you guys how many millions of pages, hopefully, we've been able to go through in LA. But these two ladies from Orange County and Riverside have some stuff to talk about from their counties. So I'll start with you, Rosa. Go ahead from Orange County.
So we're actually doing the AB 1466 in-house. We created all this, I want to say software. So it's going really well so far. I'm really impressed with our team. It's a group of 5. We started actually with 3, kind of put our minds together and see what way we wanted to go. And right now, I mean, I am so impressed of what they're doing. But if we go to the second slide, this is just a reminder for us of all the dates that impact the AB 1466, right? And they're big for us because we want to make sure that we're using the correct language, that we're actually focusing on what we need to. So if we can go to the next one. AB 1466 had deadlines and we met all of them. Thank you. You know, everything was done on time, made sure that everything was on the website, our webpage, the forms that were given to every customer stating that we are doing the AB 1466.
Pause for a second. Someone in the audience said they can't see the slides on the virtual.
No,
You're
not switching.
Okay. Where'd Ryan go? He just left. Okay. What did I do wrong? Do you know?
You gotta share.
Okay.
So,
Oh, okay.
there you go.
Okay.
There it goes. They're up now.
Sometimes that's not the best to have
fault,
her
because I
close.
hired her out of IT.
It's been a while. Okay. Can someone confirm now that they can
we're
see the
good.
slides?
They're up.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you guys for that. I practiced everything, but you know, little things happen. Okay, sorry about that, Rosa.
Okay, not a problem. Thank you. So anyway, these are important dates for us and we make sure that all our staff is aware of these dates, that we did go in compliance with the law. Next slide. This is our team and I want to make sure that they're recognized because of the work that they've done. They're amazing. Every day they go in with that. Okay, let's get this done. Get this going. So the next slide, please. Phase 1, we got together. We figured out what we needed to do to make sure that we were able to, I'm not going to say 100%, but try to catch almost every restrictive language that was in these books. So we identified 48,000 K, and that is from 1906 to 1981. Prior to 1921's record contains cursive, handwritten documents, and we've already been able to redact all those documents. Those documents actually were done by our archive staff. So anything that was in handwritten, hybrid, has already been found and redacted.
Good work.
The way that the records were categorized at that point from 1889 to December 26, all transactions were cataloged as Book of Deeds. So we identified that all these books contained obviously a big part of the language. These books have already been completed from book 1 to 694 have been completed to date. This is one of our redactions already done.
Ready for the next one?
Yes, ready for the next one. Second phase, we're actually, next week, we're going to electronic. All our documents will be submitted to our COCO, and we hope that this is going to be a faster process. So right now we have already completed 600 or 6,500 records to be processed. Now it's just waiting on COCO. So we're actually working with them to see how they would like us to submit. once these documents are going to be approved, they're going to be submitted through Secure. That's already been tested. Like I said, next week we go live. However, we still have 8,000 documents that we've already created paper.
Already waiting for your county council?
They're waiting for our county council to be approved.
They have almost 15,000, they could have 15,000 waiting.
Yes,
Okay.
which we have a meeting with Coco trying to figure out how we're going to work on this. Okay.
Wow.
Next one. This is basically how it looks electronically. This is how we submit it. Coco will receive this, the copy of the document, the cover sheet, everything will be highlighted. By the time it comes back, it'll be redacted and then submitted to Secure, submitted through Secure, uploaded to Secure. Next slide. And this is where we're at right now. So we've identified 48K from 1889 to 1981. 19,000 have already been processed as of today. 4,500 have been recorded. And because Coco does take the 90 days to approve them, so it's going to be a while. And pending are 14,500. That's our accomplishment so far, and everything is in-house.
Thank you,
Great.
Orange County.
Yes.
While that's happening, I'll try to.
Thank you.
do the-
Of all those that you found that need to be redacted, what percentage of all the documents you think that was?
I'm sorry?
Of all the documents you've looked at and the ones you've redacted, what is the percentage of redaction that you had to redact? Do you have any idea?
I'm going to say 99%.
Oh.
I think we've only had more than 99%, right? Yeah, I think we had like maybe 10 returned. Anything?
Okay, now.
Are you asking what percentage of redaction of documents that need to be redacted out of all of the records? Yeah.
Out of all of the ones, out of all your documents.
Oh,
What percentage have?
oh, the percentage. I'm sorry. I was thinking it-
The ones you
the
picked.
ones that were already
It's
submitted.
like 99%. Well,
Pretty low. That's only 48,000.
Yeah, it's only
It's really
48,000.
low. That has to be really low.
Yeah. 1%.
Yeah.
1%. Yeah.
oh,
Okay, Riverside's up to give a brief status from their county.
Oh, good morning, everyone. Again, it's a pleasure to be here to present our AB 1466 status update with you. Next slide. We are currently reviewing 28 million records to ensure that we're in compliance with the restrictive covenant program outlined in AB 1466. We are using First American's application to find and redact discriminatory unlawful language. And here's a sample of one of the documents that we determined to have unlawful language. Our proof of concept has been completed. It included years 1937, 45, 53, and 1963. We started September 2022 and completed February 2023. 184 documents were identified, approved by County Council, and recorded. First American later identified an additional 2,468 documents for review. Those documents are currently being processed. And I found out the reason that we did not receive those in our proof of concept, if there was a flag issue with the way that those documents were identified by First American. Although the additional documents were found, we did complete our proof of concept. Phase 2 has also been completed. It's 1962 to present. It was completed in 2023 of November 2023. Approximately 26 million records were reviewed and processed in Covenant Guard. 246 records were identified and approved by County Council and recorded. Next slide. Phase 3 is pending. It's 1931 to 1961. Approximately 1.3 million records have been sent to First American for upload into Covenant Guard. Our target completion date is the second quarter of 2025. Phase 4 is 1893 to 1930, and that's approximately 477,000 records. And our target completion date is third quarter of 2026. We, Riverside County, we're working on an AB 1466 map that will allow the public to follow our progress in locating and redacting these records. We want to give a shout out to Marin County. We were impressed with their map, AB 1466 map. And so we took some of those ideas for our map. And now I'm going to share a little bit about our map with you guys. We are in the staging phase. Can you guys see it?
Wait.
Oh, you think, yeah.
Okay, now try to share.
Okay.
This worked. Okay, wait, hold on. I think I need to, let me go back and make sure I stop sharing. Sorry about this, guys. Oh, no, I'm not. Oh,
Yeah.
that's it. That's you, right? Okay,
Yes,
good.
that's
Good.
right. So this first page is our timeline. And down here at the bottom is a map. It's not- I've been in there too long. Oh, here we go. This is an imagery map. You see these colored sections. The red is for non-residential. The blue is for a portion of an APN. Green is for vacant commercial. Pink, I'm sorry, I'm not colorblind. Purple is a portion of an APN, non-residential, and the yellow is residential. And you can also search by city if need be. The next slide is recorded documents by year. And as you can see, there's more documents found in the later years than the more current years. And down here, if you press play, you can see the progress of documents we've found so far. The map lights up with different areas that contain that restricted unlawful language. The next slide is it's basically a dashboard. It shows our progress within the program project. The next one is by jurisdiction. And if you click on the different cities, you'll be able to see the areas that contain that language. As I stated before, the map's in staging. We have not decided which part of the map we will be sharing with the public and which portion we'll keep in-house so that we know our progress and also be able to share with the Board of Supervisors. And then the next one is for access. So you'll be able to have, or the public, digital table access or access via a GIS file. Amy?
Back to me now?
Yeah.
Real quick, there was a question from the audience. Rosa, did your team manually review all the handwritten books?
Yes, they did.
Thank you.
Go back. You can try to keep talking. I'll get it.
Very impressive mapping.
Thank you.
We had a comment from very impressive mapping.
Oh, thank you. So what did we do right? I don't know if she has the slide. Yeah, so what we educated the public, we collaborated with stakeholders, escrow companies, title companies. Some of the title and escrow companies were not aware that this language was even in these documents, or that they, the AB 1466, there's language in there that applies to them as well. We allow customers to report documents that contain that discriminatory language on our website. And when that is reported, we will process those documents in Covenant Guard. We have one system that's a seamless workflow system with the clerk recorder and county council. And we are staying on track with our timeline. And also, again, the story map that we want to present for the public so that they can follow our progression with the program. Lessons learned. We learned a lot during this. I know I learned a whole heck of a lot. I am not very familiar with the older records or with records in general. So we did have someone in-house that has knowledge of those older records. And that's very important because there's times, especially for Riverside County, where prior to 1965, our records were book and page. And then after that, it was instrument numbers. So if you're not aware of that, or you have someone working on the project that's not aware of that, you won't be able to name your documents properly. So that's a big plus. We decided to start with the most recent years because those are the years that are requested by the public frequently. We know that phase 4 is going to be very challenging because those are when documents were handwritten. Document your procedures. That's very, very important because that way you can hand those procedures off to someone else when you need to bring them onto the project. Ensuring that the images are cropped. That was a big one for Riverside County because our images were not cropped when we started. And so the staff had to get familiar with finding the beginning and the ending of a record. And then we also cropped off the records that did not apply to that specific document. Staff productivity, Zoom capability, that's very important, especially when you're dealing with those older records, being able to zoom in and see the documents because some of them are not very legible. And also the historical index. That's another project included in the AB 1466 project because the code says those documents also need to be indexed as they were originally recorded. So that's another project that we're working on in addition to the AB 1466 project. Conclusion. We were one of the first counties to implement the AB 1466 automated solution into production. And with the help of our partners at First American and Esri, we are completing the AB 1466 project and the AB 146 map in-house with existing staff.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions as it relates to the restrictive covenants? Andrew has, do you want to get it, Maxine?
Just to add a little bit to the GIS. So we're a combined office. I guess we have a little bit of a leg up in that regard. So what happens is as soon as those documents are recorded, we get those back from county council. Then we have a SharePoint list, a spreadsheet that we share with our friends in valuation, the change in ownership group, and they actually do the research. They'll take a look at historical documents, I should say, and identify the correct APN. So that's why you saw in some of those cases where there might be like a partial APN because the APN from 1937 might not be the same as today. So that's where you get some of that information from. But we're very grateful for valuation's help on that for sure.
I actually have a question, and I should know this. How long is it from the time the recorder approves it? How long until you're, I know with Orange County, there's a backlog. I know you guys, I think, are moving through it quicker. How long is it generally the time frame from when the recorder sends it to when the county council actually approves and it gets re-recorded? What's your time frame?
So in the program, so they're able to go into Covenant Guard and see if there's any documents waiting for them, but we actually email them and let them know when there's documents waiting for them. And so maybe 2 days. The turnaround is very quick.
And I just want to add that's in part, due to our system, Covenant Guard, that we're using. Just that one system with that one workflow where both our staff and county council can review and approve and then send it back to us with the document already completed. It's auto-populated, has really helped in that workflow as far as county council approval and then recording.
So just follow-up question on that, both for Riverside and Orange. How many attorneys and county council are assigned to do this? And have you had any where they have rejected the determination? What was the nature of that?
For Riverside County, we have 2 county councils reviewing, and we have not had any rejected yet.
For Orange County, we have 1 reviewing the covenants, and we've had probably 2 rejected.
Do you recall what that was about?
It was basically, one was to add more language. And the other one, oh, she didn't deem that it had the language appropriate to
Question from the audience. Are county councils charging recorders for their services?
In Riverside County, we are not being charged for our services. They wanted to charge us for our services, but Lisa and Melissa were on it. And because it's in the law, it states that they are obligated to do this. They're not charging us.
Orange?
Orange is pink.
Orange is paying.
I'm pretty sure it's a redaction.
San Bernardino is paying. Joni?
Follow the lead of Riverside and spoke to our county council as well, said they're legally required to do so. But their interpretation is even though it's a legal requirement, if work is done at the recorder because you are self-funded, we will still charge you for that work. So as we're continuing our program, one of the things that we're trying to do is if we see documents where the language is very similar, and so we're making those changes and it's the same change in multiple documents, trying to create a template or spreadsheet that says, this is the language that would be redacted and it's the same language. And we show a number of documents so that we can get the time that it takes them to do so shortened. So it depends on how county council chooses to look at required and still charging a self-funded department. So.
Or you can just meet them out in the parking lot after hours like me and Melissa did. Yeah.
And just for the record here, I have in the chat, San Luis Obispo, they're not being charged, and Santa Cruz are not being charged.
Don't put you guys in it.
The comment was, do not have your council contact Riverside's council.
Thank you. Oh, go-
I have an actual question for Riverside, GIS related. Early on, when we looked at APNs, when we talked about mapping, we kind of put some in the assessor's database and we noticed that what used to be an old house is now a 20-unit apartment. How are you dealing with that?
That's really where those partial matches are coming up from. So that's where the color coding comes into play.
Okay.
Yeah, we've experienced the same exact thing. And I'm glad you mentioned APN too, because that was a staging environment.
Mhm.
And something that we're kind of wrestling with internally is, okay, how much information do we put out there
Right.
without compromising, security
Exactly.
of the individual
Exactly.
homeowner? So
Okay.
to be continued.
Great. Really good discussion, very valuable information. Thank you, Orange County and Riverside. And like I said, hopefully by our next meeting, LA will be able to provide some of their information as well. Our next topic that we're going to just very briefly touch upon is there was a Senate Bill 882 that passed into law just this year, and it does allow for the county recorders to deliver certified copies digitally. And so we are just very briefly, I'm going to ask Val, Monique, and Lisa to just touch on that, let you guys know what we are or are not doing yet, and just kind of what we're thinking about in the future.
So in San Diego, we foresaw that at some point it was going to pass. So it was actually in our system contract when they contracted for our system over 10 years ago, and we just delayed working on it. So as soon as the legislature and the governor signed the bill, we had our team working on a kind of the statement of work and the functionality we wanted. What we're looking for, we're anticipating going live either late fourth quarter, early first quarter, 2025. And what we are planning is kind of big scope is that when that document is electronically certified, that whoever holds that document forever will be able to go to a website to validate that it is an actual certified document. And that those things will be, in perpetuity. Not that I know that there are some systems that you can only review it for 90 days. We feel like with a paper document, that certification is good as long as you still hold the document. That should hold true with an electronic copy also. And that's kind of so we're hoping late this year, early next year. And no purple stamp though.
No purple.
No purple.
No
stamp.
purple stamp for anyone that knows it.
Monique or
Okay, so in LA, we're in basically the feasibility stage, right? We know that there is a lot of discussion about specific blockchain technology, but we believe that, you know, there are other alternatives that we would like to explore as long as that we can get that technology that will actually certify, lock, and secure the document, then that's the way that we're going to go. So we're in the feasibility study right now, working closely with my CIO to determine, you know, what's the best route, what's the best way, because where does blockchain really fit into the sequence of document recording? Does it really, or does it not? So we're learning all of that and trying to make sure that, you know, we apply the best technology. So by the end of this year, we should be completed our feasibility, and then next year we'll be approaching how we're going to actually roll it out.
Anything to add from Riverside?
We're similar to San Diego. We are actually still, our vendor has a solution that we expect to be ready very soon, but we still are issuing all of our official records by paper, on paper.
Mhm.
So of course, you know, we would, for the electronic certification, we want to be able to issue electronically too. So we're exploring issuing electronically and then also certifying that electronic record.
Mhm.
And so we hope to do both. Andrew can give an update very, very soon, by the maybe early next year is probably the better, a better timeline for that. So, I mean, for records that are not electronic, we still have to go to film, books. We're
Yeah.
still, I mean, so for us, we're talking about, you know, certifying electronically, but then you have conversion, issuing electronically, and then certifying. So I think we're all on that same path to issue everything that we can electronically and certify those same records.
Yeah, and in Los Angeles, we recognize from AB 1466 that we needed to do a bigger project with conversion. So, yeah.
I will add too that we implemented in 2023 email e-commerce. So customers can currently go online and buy electronic records. So anything that's currently in our system, which is 1970 to I'll say 1970 to 79, which the staff will have to go offline to get them and email them. But as long as the index is available online, the customer can order electronically and it's instantaneous. So we just have a little piece to add on to, I say it's a little piece, but
The certification.
I'm sure our developers aren't saying it's a little piece, but it does. And so as we move on with our AB 1466 digitization and put those into our system, all of those will start becoming available to the customers as long as our index remains online.
That's great.
So,
Yeah, we basically know the technology exists because we do it in Los Angeles on our FBNs. So, and it's not blockchain. So
we're not looking at blockchain.
Yeah.
Not for this.
Okay, well, I'm gonna move it forward. We're getting a little tight on the schedule. Got to make sure I give you enough time here, gentlemen. So the next quick topic, I'm gonna go back to Miss Val for a second, just to talk briefly about, I'm sure you guys are all aware that some counties, county recorders have fraud notification information that we send out to customers immediately following recording, just to let them know that this document was recorded. Here's the information. If this was not your doing, so to speak, here's your resources and who you could contact. So Val was just going to talk briefly about what they do in San Diego.
So we went live with an enhanced version in October 2022, and we have flyers out on the table. We have named ours Owner Alert, and we have currently about 44,000 accounts. And it can be either an email address or a APN or both. And I think each email address can have 10 accounts. We use a pull system. So the customer must sign up to get the notifications. And we have never done a push test. We've never mailed the letters out. We've always held out to get this implemented. I think one of the main reasons we prefer this method is it's included in our system. There is no additional cost to the county or cost to the customer. And because it's a pull system and there is no mailing cost, the customers get notified for any document that records with their name. Now, granted, if their name is David Gonzalez, they're going to get all the David Gonzalez's, but they're aware of that. I think that it's also, we've really partnered with our title industry, and we allow co-branding of our flyers, and we've had real estate agents use them, and we encourage our title industry to tell their customers to sign up because as soon as our documents are verified, the email goes out. So we verify either same day or the very next day, and they're able to get those documents. They get the first 2 pages of the document. They can see that they're, whatever it is recorded, the full conveyance, any document that they've recorded, they'll get that email and see that. So we see our elected also conducted a mass mailing in the summer, I think August, June, July, August, co-branded with our assessor division, and sent out notice evaluations. I think they're planning to send those annually, and also sent an informational piece about owner alert. And we saw a huge spike. He wanted us to get it to 20,000, and we were at like 9,900, and we spiked over 40,000 before that, like just from that mailing. So we anticipate that we'll continue to see a spike when we do those annual informational notifications. We also partner with our DA, our district attorney's office, on presentations about owner alert and the fraud notification.
And in LA, you actually have the LA flyer above your head.
Well, I'm not start off by just saying, I don't have that flyer in front of me. I apologize, first of all. But
Get it
LA
that
is
way, because
pretty-
I'm going to convert it on the computer.
Please mute virtually.
Good.
I think so.
LA has been pretty progressive on fraud notification. We've been doing this for probably over 20 years. LA was the first county.
Okay, okay. Sorry about that. Somebody did a mute all. Please don't do that because it mutes the room. So I apologize. Just keep going, Mo.
Check my clip.
Can you guys hear now? Can we get thumbs up virtually? From anyone, please?
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So I'm going to start here by going over the flyer. We partner with Assessor Group here in Los Angeles County, and we named it e-notification. Our partners here from Assessor are here. We do a draw off to the assessor and then they issue an email to any customer who has opted into the program. So it's seamless. We do the draw off. If you've opted in, then you're sent off the notification. But what I was saying before, now I'm all rattled, is that LA County, LA County was very progressive in fraud notification program. We've been doing it for over 20 years. Los Angeles County was the first county to actually be codified in law and was able to charge the $7. That law has now been extended to other counties throughout the state. So that's a good thing. Most counties in California now have these either e-notification or fraud notification programs that are more of alerts than fraud prevention. She just keeps giving me stuff and cutting me off. So you can go on our website and you can click. We have a banner that shows for all of anybody coming into the office, any public, they can just click on the link on the Registered Recorder's website or the assessor's website. We also partner with our Department of Business, Consumer and Affairs, who they do the investigating for this program. And they work very closely with our DA. So when we are thinking or we see something coming over our counters that has the potential to look like fraud, we immediately forward those people to DCBA, who then couples with the DA in order to make sure that, you know, fraudulent things are not going on. People are not being, paying for property and it's being foreclosed upon and things of that nature. I'm going to ask Nicole if she has anything to add to that. I think she should probably be up here on this panel because they do the brunt of our e-notification work. We actually have two programs in Los Angeles County. One is the e-notification where we couple with the assessor, and the second one, which was the first, is our actual fraud notification program where we do mailers.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to say thank you. Appreciate the partnership. I'm here with several of my colleagues. I want to point them out because we're very proud of this program. I have Dara Smith, my fellow director. I have Jeffrey Meyer over our Ownership Services Division, our chief, and we also have Virginia Landick, Ownership Services Principal Appraiser. Very important people to know in the room. But regarding this program, we're really excited about it. And in addition to getting the e-notification, if you opt in, we want to really promote this because there's other services. One of them is our mailing address. Sometimes people are saying they're not getting their tax bills. We're not the tax collector, but we do take those addresses. So there's other information that you can get, and we're really excited about it. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think that's it for LA.
If I can ask our title and escrow community, please have this part of your closing package when you're doing your closings. This is very helpful. You can get them right at the ground level with the fraud notification. You do a closing.
And we have handouts over there on the table where you guys first came in. So, all right. Thank you guys very much for that information. So now it is time to hear from the private industry. We have Calvin who's going to talk a little bit about AI and title insurance.
Right.
So let me make sure I can share this correctly.
All right, so I have 8 minutes, right?
Yeah, well, yeah,
Awesome.
no, it's okay if we go over.
No. So I was just going to mention that anything I go through, AI is a very complicated discussion, or it can be very straightforward and simple. So if I don't touch in areas that you're interested in, I'll be sticking around after and happy to have conversations and dig as deep as you want, or talk about other areas where AI is actually kind of filtering their way into industry on a daily basis. So
First slide here, sorry.
that's okay.
Hold on, sorry. Okay, let me go back and share. This one. I'm gonna get there. Am I gonna do it? Okay,
They're
now
saying
I'm
they lost
here
sound again.
virtually.
They're saying they lost sound again.
They lost sound again? No, I see. Okay, so we can see it here. Can you see it virtually?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
No,
I think
we
we're
can't.
good.
They can hear me
Oh,
okay?
Yep.
Okay.
All right,
Yes.
perfect. So I want to spend a few minutes. I'm going to talk about AI, what it is, background, how we've used it here at First American, how we're seeing it used in the industry. I'll talk about some of the recent developments that we hear in the news every day, ChatGPT, generative AI, and then we'll talk about where we're seeing it fit going forward specifically. So if you want to advance. AI actually is considered a discipline. It actually got its first starting in around the mid 50s. So it's almost 70 years old. I think most of us were introduced through the movies, dating myself here.
We can't see the. No.
A little bit here, but like HAL 9000 from 2001 Space Odyssey, Tron, The Matrix, are things where computers are actually thinking for themselves. But it's actually tightly related to the advancements of the ability to store and use data and the advancements of the machines to be able to process that particular data. So if you look at in 97 and so on, it really is closely tied to advancements made on the infrastructure. How can we process this data and learn from what we've known? And that up until generative AI has come out in this subdiscipline, it's really about those advancements and how much data a system can understand and process to give you a decision or a prediction. You go to you're 2 slides behind, sorry. There you go.
Crazy things are happening here.
That's all right. So the way you should look at it is AI is the discipline. Within that, there's machine learning, where it's learning on a subset of data. There's deep learning, where it's massive amounts of data, to where we're at today with generative AI, where now we have an interface into this decisions and predictions that the machines are making, right? So that's the way you should think about it. AI is actually this all encompassing. It has to do with visions, being able to tell a bird from a plane. It has to do with understanding language and understanding, kind of telling you, like predicting what a result from a series of questions. Go to the next page. Visually, how this is representative is, as you see, as it kind of progresses here, you're getting more and more data input. And why is this important? So when we initially built models back in the early 2000s, it was very limited as the amount of data that we could show it. So we had to limit it on go forward. Something that's being recorded today limited us in our ability to look backwards. I think we heard earlier today on the panel, like 1930s and 1960s, documents were different, right? Language was different. Even language was different back in those days. And when you look across counties, especially when you get to the East Coast, different terms for grantor and grantee are used and historically. And so that is more parameters and more information that a model or a machine needs to understand to be able to tell you how well it can actually predict the information or give you a decision. And so as machines increase their capabilities, our ability to store data happen. Now you're starting to see more and more advancements to where we're at with generative AI today. Go ahead, next page. And when you think of generative AI, really what that is it's a large language model sitting on top of an interface, a chatbot that allows you to interact with a machine. And the two key things here is that large language model, which is basically, you hear a lot of stories about, oh, it crawled the entire internet, it went to every website, it pulled off information. And you think about, oh, it's making decision off of websites. Really what it's doing is it's actually understanding the human language. It's taking a dictionary where it understands the word, but how does that word relate to other words in a context to understand a question or understand a statement? It's really kind of building an understanding of a language. So now when you put a chatbot or an interface on top of it, it can understand. Instead of you having to describe what a title examiner is, you can say, as a title examiner, tell me who a grantor is on this document. It knows what a title examiner is. It knows what a grantor is because it understands English language. And that's really what the large language model is underneath. Now, there's been a lot of different language models being out there because it all comes down to what it crawled and what it understood to build its context of language is important to what comes out on the other end, right? If it doesn't understand the language well, it's going to give you a bad response. And so you're seeing the proliferation of these large language models out on the industry today. Google has one, Meta has one, Microsoft has one. There's a whole host of them on a free open source website called Hugging Face, where you can download them yourselves. So you really are, when you're in the technology industry or data science industry, you're really struggling between, do I trust the prediction that's coming out of a language model that I didn't build versus the older schedule where I provided the data to build the language to understand title language, the language of title, the language of real estate. And so those are really kind of what you're comparing at to get to an answer. The other, I would say, a negative side of the language model generative AI is that it's generative, meaning that it's going to give you an answer whatever question you ask it. And you have to really be cautious to know that it may make up an answer. It knows the language. So you hear it called hallucination, but really it's generative, right? It's a plus, but it's also a negative. It's great when you say, create a picture of a bird, flying, in North America, that has red tips, right, on its wings. It's able to create that for you, but it's also the downside is that maybe you didn't want the bird in North America. It's gonna generate a picture what it thinks that you want. And so it's really important for you to consider this as you're thinking about these new models. While the large language model and ChatGPT allows you to get to scale quickly, you also have to make sure that you're building the infrastructure to validate what information it's giving you, right? We have taken an approach where we orchestrate across multiple models so that we evaluate and triangulate to the truth. And I think that's an important consideration when you're thinking about using AI in your businesses. Another advantage that I think GTP has given you is that a lot of vision models happening. It can evaluate a picture. Where that's becoming important, we're kind of seeing where that's going, is in and around actually go to the next slide, sorry, in and around kind of using a vision model to quickly determine or identify it's something you're looking for. So for instance, in an older workflow for AI or machine learning, we would have to actually take an image and turn it into text and look in that text for something specific. Does this number pattern match in a social security number? Does this word pattern match a restrictive covenant, right? In a vision model, it can look at the actual picture, right? So like how it can distinguish between the types of birds is the same way how it can distinguish the words on a page in an image, right? So vision models allow you to actually move a lot quicker and do more of the identification up front. And specifically how that relates is that in our process, we're always looking for vital documents when they're recorded, right? Did a marriage certificate, death certificate, or something where I don't necessarily want to be distributed, get recorded, and I have to address that. In our old process, that would be a human looking at that. Human still makes mistakes, especially if a vital document is buried within several pages, whether there's a cover sheet or other things that are associated with it. And so you're looking at those vital documents, and in the old process, I'd have to convert it to text, then I'd have to run my model, and then I'd have someone validate it. With newer vision models, I'm able to actually address that and identify that very, very quickly by just looking at the image itself. Give you an example, prior to using an LLM to do this in a vision model, we had about a 93% accuracy with a human actually looking at the document and identifying it as a vital. Using a vision model, we're at 99.5% accuracy. And it really, what it does is it changes the culture of our organization from a data entry culture to a validation culture. And that allows our organization to handle the scale of when we have a surge in recordings or a lull, right? Because I'm using the machines and I can adjust the machine usage, and it helps me kind of offset the human capital aspect of the workflow itself, right? And so we're kind of seeing a huge lift on that in our abilities to kind of identify them quickly and make sure that we're addressing them properly within our systems. So as you see, that's kind of turning us, thinking of us more as a validation, it's turning us into where are the other opportunities within the title industry, within our industry of where we can look at this. Things like ownership changing. How do I compare multiple documents against each other to make sure that ownership changed hands correctly, right? Now I can use the language that I understand, send the documents to this AI model and say, the individuals or the organizations that are on this document, do they match in succession? And it quickly can understand that and kind of review that for us and predict. And now I have someone reviewing that prediction as opposed to actually going through every single individual document to make that decision. So we're seeing a lot of capabilities being added, but also we're being mindful to know that where the data to make those decisions coming from, how we're triangulating and validating that that data is correct, and then actually having ways to make decisions. I think that's been kind of the big lift for us. So hopefully I gave you enough information. Hopefully. No, I think that.
Oh, that was just your thing. Okay.
Yeah, I was going through kind of very fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So we're seeing definitely some advantages on document categorization. I think it goes all the way back to our first patent in document categorization in 2006. Advancements just allow us to actually get more granular in our approach on document categorizations, MPI detection, redaction, you name it. I think that all those models have actually gotten so much better, so much quicker, that it's allowed us to really change our workflow and actually the culture of our organization.
Well, then Val has a question.
I don't know how, for Southern California, how far back your plant goes, if it goes back all the way to, as we say, dirt.
Or patent, we call it going back to patent, right? One of the first.
Probably a nice way to.
Yeah.
So are you, I mean, I know it's generative and it works better going into the future, but are you, or is First American planning on going back and building a database with all of the data off those documents?
So we have not so much and we have a good grounding here. I mean, we go back pretty far in our databases on our title plants but in other counties where we thought where there just wasn't, it didn't make sense for us to go further back. I mean, we just released, I don't know, it was a year ago, that we actually released 1,000 new counties where we didn't have history back to patent. We're able to use this technology to look backwards on it, right? So we are actually using it today to actually expand our depth in a lot of counties that we didn't have
And
before.
is this a first American software?
So the extraction technology, it's actually our data content creation process internal. It's not something, I mean, we're leveraging it, Covenant Guard, we talked about a little bit. We're leveraging that technology and those offerings, but it's primarily used internally.
I'll just say this, other recorders can tell me if I'm wrong, but we would love a product that it could actually get automated indexing correct at a higher percentage than say 60%. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it is one of the most labor intensive functions that we do. And most of us still do blind key verify.
Yeah.
And so having a tool that gets the actual indexing correct the first pass would be a huge improvement.
Definitely some advancements that you're seeing in the recent years with it. Because when you start going back into history, 10 years ago, we ran into the quality of the image, right? We talked about you coming off of film, right? And that quality of that image isn't that great. And I think, I don't know if we had a picture of it earlier of these older images now using vision models and using other technologies, we're actually able to clean up those documents and actually interpret them and get better at it, right? So you're seeing those advancements help us actually move backwards faster than forward, right? And because the newer stuff is cleaner, but the old stuff is harder to get to. That's where we've actually made some advancements on that end. Handwriting as well.
So I want to follow up. Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm actually the product manager that helped create Covenant Guard. But actually, I got elevated to be our DTOCR product manager. And that's our platform that is really a system of systems of machine learning and the OCR and everything that OCR platform can do, including redaction. We're working on a project right now to do the next generation of what we call our starter extraction. So starters are title policies that were issued years ago. And a title company wants to have a starter so that they don't have to go back to patent. They have something to start with and they can go forward from that point. The starter, we have something called a starter exchange. That starter exchange needs the index data. So we are building a brand new DTOCR machine learning workflow to be able to more quickly and easily extract all the index data from those particular types of documents. So I was actually just talking to David earlier today about this, and I'm like, I can definitely see this exact workflow being used on recorded documents, not the starters, to be able to pull off that index data and then be able to provide that index data back to the county. So if we have the image and we can run it through the machine learning and the OCR model workflow, we can be able to extract the index data.
Because we're all doing this, a lot of us are doing this back digitization to meet the requirements of AB 1466, but it doesn't do a lot of good if we leave them off onto a server somewhere because we don't have the matching index data. And so it's really helpful. I think we're all thinking about how can we put these into our systems, but then how do we get that index data? It is so costly to have manual indexing done. But we need trustworthy data.
And that's exactly why we're working on this, next generation of index capability, because right now we do have a team of manual indexers and it's just not scalable. We've got millions and millions of starters we would love to be able to get in, and we want to make that a quick, easy, and efficient process.
Same thing for Los Angeles. When we started exploring AB 1466, we quickly recognized that we needed a bigger or more extensive conversion program. So how do we utilize that data that we're OCRing for AB 1466 and have it feed into other areas that we can streamline? So we absolutely are capturing some of that indexing data, and we're going to marry those. And so that's going to eliminate the manual process. But I'm so impressed. I was just asking, so are you telling me your bot is doing a chain of title? He said, no, our program. So I can't call our model. I can't call it a bot, but that's impressive. I want a tour.
Yeah.
Same.
So
I want a tour.
Just talking about AI in Riverside County, we've used AI for our actually appraisal, we did for some commercial and residential appraisal. We're looking at generative AI right now. We've done a proof of concept with that on our assessor side. We're looking at it for clerk reporter. We're just doing our proof of concept basically consists of, so for examining, right, the recording of documents, you have a staff who are reviewing all of these documents, rejecting, right? And we put in this, I don't know the correct term, but let's say Chat GPT, for instance, like we said, it searches the internet. So we created our own ACR GPT that basically you load in all documents and resources, like let's say the DRIM or your own user manuals. And that way, when your staff are examining, they can ask it questions just like you would Chat GPT, and it gives consistent answers, hopefully. But it's a proof of concept.
It will.
So we are exploring generative AI. We're really excited about that. It's just examining is just probably the first use, but it goes on and on and on. And so we're looking for more opportunities, definitely for AI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say if you're exploring with it, a couple things, make sure that you're clamping down on, again, it's called hallucination. How much is it making up versus how much it's actually can citations off of what it's searching on. That's definitely something to look at. Make sure you have a good validation process, right? Get out of the mindset that you're a data entry and that you're validating the results that are coming off. I think the more data you have to support that is definitely an advantage. And I think it'll be really good on a lot of the easier questions that you asked. I think you need to prepare for the harder questions when there's not a lot of examples that it can use to predict an answer. Those are the areas that you're going to put a little bit more effort around to examine. But as you explore it, I think you'll find that it'll get you the easier stuff a lot quicker than you would anticipate.
And you can add in the hard stuff, right? It's whatever you put in there.
Yeah.
So you just, whatever you teach it, basically load in.
So can I piggyback on that? Am I on? Yeah. For Covenant Guard, and Calvin kind of touched on it, but for Covenant Guard, those technologies go into play, but the machine learning works with the OCR that Nicole was mentioning. The machine learning contextually can go through and find something that's a restrictive covenant, or the machine learning understands the paragraph and understands the language. Then it can pull out only those, which is a more arduous process, right? The OCR process and all of that. So the machine learning, and this is how we apply the technology, that all of this technology, the machine learning can pull out of 26 million documents, the 5,000 that are, huge probability, almost definitely have covenants, so that then they're put through the OCR process. So that's how the process in Riverside, and that's how the process with the technology moves quickly. It immediately goes through and gets rid of the 25 some odd million you don't need to look at and tells, here's what the humans need to look at, or here's what you can pull out. So all these technologies can work together for that workflow or whatever. So I know we touched on the technology, but how it's being used is like that, where you use the machine learning for part of it to reduce that human workload or that human resource of the documents. Could you imagine having to look at 26 million documents? It would be ridiculous. You can't do it. It would take, 2070? Maybe you'd get the project done. But so that's how the technologies come into play. And I just wanted to kind of talk, Calvin's up here and I'm down here. I just wanted to, and on what Nicole was talking about, like Val, Monique, call me. If we can keep you posted on, we can keep you posted on the work we're doing with. Because she pulls up to her eyeballs in all of that and making it practical.
Okay. Are we good? Okay, that was great. Thank you guys. Let's give our tech panel a high. And we're just about 15 minutes off schedule, but that is totally fine because I think we're doing most of our Q&A while we're going through. So let's go ahead and take a quick 15-minute break. Please help yourself to refreshments, coffee, breakfast burritos if you didn't have one. And for those of you virtually, we will go on mute and we will resume at 10:45.
This Jamie on this one. I guess practice for that one. Well, thank you. I love your PowerPoint. I do want to talk to you about your maps.
Now all of the mics are muted.
We haven't started.
It should be. Wait, that was green.
same technology that the CR and everything. And it's even a part of
I'm gonna just, that is on. That one for you. If anyone virtually could give me a thumbs up that they can hear us once again. Yay! Thank you for the thumbs up. Okay, so let me, I can just stop sharing.
You have the questions all written out.
Well, it's Eugene's turn. Okay, is that gonna distract you or is that okay?
I hope
Okay.
not.
Okay.
Looking at yourself while you speak, that might be a challenge, but oh well. Welcome back from the break. We have some general questions on this panelists. Thank you, Mr. Garrett, for joining us. Nicole, Monique, Lisa, thank you all for being here. Just kind of bringing out my inner Phil Donahue and just kind of just asking things off the cuff. We did role play a little bit last week, but we're going to kind of get this off. But from our last meeting last year in 2023, March 2023,
They've met Nicole
oh,
and
okay.
Garrett yet, so.
Let me do that. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Nicole Gamble White, we briefly talked about you. If you could just say hello and introduce yourself, it'd be great.
Good morning. Good morning. Yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nicole White Gamble, and I'm with the Los Angeles County Assessor's Office. I'm the Director of Role Services, which basically means our ownership team is very much engaged with the law, our business solution group, and our appraisal standards. So, as always, am glad to be able to sit up here with my partners, Monique, Eugene, Jamie. So thank you all for always inviting me to allow us to be a part of the party. We appreciate it.
Mr. Rogers, if you could please introduce yourself.
Sure. Yeah, Garrett Rogers. I'm corporate counsel with First American. I'm legal counsel for a number of different divisions within First American, primarily our data division. So a lot of these issues are very, very close to me. I've been with the company for 11 years. Great to be here and welcome to our worldwide headquarters here today.
Excellent. Thank you. I want to jump right in. From last year to this year, a lot of things have been happening, privacy, data, and everything else. At the PRIA Winter Conference, even on the virtual side, if you participated, Daniel's Law was very prominent, took front and stage on one of the sessions. And I'm going to bug you about this, Monique, because you were on that session. Is everybody familiar with Daniel's Law? It's the son of a judge who got murdered. They found his information, the address online in New Jersey, and the son got murdered, and they created this law to remove address information and other sensitive information. That's a backdrop. And so PRIA, what'd you think about the Daniel's Law presentation?
Well, it wasn't very specific to Daniel's Law. It was really much more extensive than I had recognized, because they coupled it with judges, right? Privacy, and then all of the other groups that have attempted to pass legislation in that realm. And so it was a huge discussion. It was an eye opener to understand what all of the different states have implemented and how much ledge has come out of those different states. I think we spoke a little earlier. I was really impressed where, as in California, we're being progressive to say, if not when, but if and when both, we have to do this. How are we going to do it? So collectively throughout the state, we're approaching it as, let's look at it collectively, holistically, and say, recorders throughout the state, it's coming. We've seen it at PRIA. All of the states have something, just a little, not all of them, but most of the states have a program in place, but they're very different, right? We see some states doing shielding. We see some states doing pins. We see some states are requesting to have the chain of title attached to the recorders. And then on the back end, we see, or on the very front end, we see where there's some oversight. It's not just a recorder issue. We have Secretary of State, court, and DOJ approval prior to getting to the recorder. So it's just to be able to attend, because as we're sitting roundtable in California, we can offer those suggestions where we had not considered oversight by DOJ or the courts. But
and thank you for clarifying, because being at a PRIA event, you kind of learn what not to do. And kind of going back to Daniel's Law, I want to read one line in there. It specifically permits covered persons authorize a third party to assert the covered person's rights on behalf of authorized person. And they have a 10-day window to remove that data and information. And so, Garrett, how are your agents and your direct operations handling that in New Jersey?
So I don't think we've seen, from a title insurance perspective, I don't think we've seen the downstream impact of Daniel's Law, but I can tell you from the data perspective, we have been inundated with requests. And I think there's a few issues, and these deletion requests, to be clear. So, on that topic of, utilizing a third party to submit a request on your behalf. So there has been a cottage industry that has stood up now, and that's these companies that are essentially, bringing in a number of different individuals and making requests on their behalf and inundating companies with those requests. We're abiding by those the best we can. But there's a lot of issues with the statute. For example, we've received requests with common names that can be very difficult to identify, where's their address in New Jersey, or with multiple addresses. There's no verification. Is that their primary address? The statute's very unclear. Can they request redaction for a property in another state, for example? So there's a lot of gray areas in the law, certainly well-intended, but we think that there's some cleanup that needs to be done to the law to make it kind of workable. But we're doing the best we can. And to answer your question, I mean, on the downstream impact, to the extent that we've received a number of requests and those records get removed, those individuals may face difficulties in the future and want to sell their home or refinance their home. So I think there is an exception under Daniel's law for certain industries to get access to that information, but it's a little bit difficult to segment, data, the unredacted version versus the redacted version. I won't get into too much detail here, but, it remains to be seen what that downstream impact is.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And that kind of segues to us in California, because that's why we have the chapter. We have AB 1785 that's right now in there, and it's, the posting of home addresses and the AIN number or PIN number. That's the way the current language is currently in going through. We have Nicole here, who's part of the assessor's office, and you're the master of the AIN, your office is. So how is that going to impact with the current language?
So, we're like with anything, you're waiting to see what the final is going to be. Obviously, at this point in time, we look at the assessor's website. We try to get that balance of making sure we can get data to people that need it for legitimate reasons and making that accessible. So currently the APN, obviously, home address, that information is available. We don't post owners' names on our website, but that information is there. So I think we've really been trying to just kind of look at what's available and what those impacts would be, one, to the public, again, and then seeing what types of changes we might have to make. We've also been talking with our partners to see in terms of our information and data sharing, what that might look like in terms of impacts. And we're also hoping that when this type of legislation is being proposed, that people are speaking with us, they're talking to us, so we can really talk about what some of the administrative requirements are that we have, and also understanding what that might look like in terms of, as Gary's mentioned, some of the impacts that may be unintended, but consequential. So again, we'll continue to examine it. We'll work and give our feedback, and we'll go from there, essentially.
And Monique, you're on the legislative committee for the California Recorders Association, and how are you in communication with author, with your lobbyists, and how's that coming along?
Absolutely. We're in communication with our advocate almost daily, if not daily, morning and night, right? But AB 1785 is like Nicole said, just the beginning of what we're expecting to see. Like you said, the bill only speaks to one area really, and that's not combining the APN and the names on one actual hub, so to speak, in terms of posting. So we know it's important. We know that we need to look at it from the broad perspective and work very closely with our assessors. So both associations are working together on any proposed language, or just in the theme of let's look at it broader and say, we know it's coming. We heard it at PRIA. We know what other states are doing. This is probably just a gut and amend bill for, you know how that goes, just to get the language in there. So we're expecting it, and we're just trying to prepare for it.
Garrett, how will this impact the title if this goes through? And
yeah, I mean, so the most recent drafts I've seen, do provide, it really, at this point, is really only addressing that public-facing component, or which I think we've seen across the country in various counties where information will be made available to title insurance companies or title plan companies, really through a direct pipeline with the county, and that works well. So to the extent it's not available on a public-facing website, as long as there's other ways to access that information, that's totally workable for us. I think our concern is, do these laws sort of progress and start to dig into
right?
And I think with all of these redaction laws, I think fundamentally we're opposed to redaction at the county level. In our view, those records should never be redacted permanently at the county level. We understand that certain ways that information is delivered to the public, you might mask that information, but fundamentally at the county level, we can't see scenarios where the county record starts to deteriorate with these privacy laws. And I mean, I'll get off my soapbox eventually here, but I mean, fundamentally, the United States, our entire real estate finance ecosystem is based off the county record,
Yes.
right? And the reason you can put 20% down on a home and take out a loan for 80% of the value of a very, very expensive home is because, one, a lender will loan you the money because they can rely on the county record, they can rely on that collateral, they can rely on that title, and they can get title insurance to insure that title. If those things start to deteriorate, you could see scenarios where lenders are not going to be willing to, make those loans or refinance those loans, or an individual won't be able to sell a home because that buyer can't insure the property or get a purchase money loan to purchase that property. So, we think these are really, important issues. And we've got to be really careful and make sure we get the privacy concerns. We understand that, but people need to realize that you could argue that the reason that the United States is the most wealthy country in the world is because of reliable land records. And I think that's a very a reasonable argument.
Garrett just described the book Mystery of Capital.
Yeah.
I've read the Capital. So if you haven't,
I'm gonna use
know
that,
about
Garrett.
that, so thank you. That was great. Now, here's something interesting that I read in the current bill. The authors think there's no economic impact to remove such data. Lisa, Monique, what do you think?
Well, so the bill is not asking us to redact anything, right? It's just saying you cannot post the name and the address together on the internet. So if we're talking about, what the cost is for that, it's really nothing for us because we already don't post on the internet. We can't post because of the other privacy law that says that you can't show certain officials and law enforcement their address online without their permission. So we've already had these things, happening. And right now, of course, no cost, but where is this going? Where is this going? And we've had the discussions about, oh, well, they could still find the information on the internet. You can Google and the address and the name will come back up. Evidently, that's not working. So for those who want to really address this issue with, especially the judges and their privacy. So we're going to have to do something on our end eventually, like Monique said, and that's really what we're preparing for. I mean, is it going to eventually come to our kiosk? Right now, it's the internet. Will it be soon where you can't get the information from our office at all unless you're an authorized individual like they did with vitals? I mean, I was around in the 1990s when vitals were all open and anyone can get a vital record. Anybody can search the index, and then they closed them and you had to be authorized for privacy. So I think it's due, and we just got to find the best way to do that without harming the integrity of the records. And just like what was said, the documents are the linchpin to, buying and selling property, and which is our economy. And so it's a balance. And right now, thank goodness, no cost because we don't have any money anyway. No.
Nicole, though, your office has the AIN numbers online. Will there be an economic impact if you're to take them off? Or are you just going to say we're taking them offline? Or
So again, fortunately, at this point in time, it wouldn't be a cost per se. Obviously, I think it just becomes the availability of information for people, right? And so I think that's the biggest issue. Right now, the way it's written, though, it's combinations of information. Like I said, for us, we do not post owners' names online. But again, it's this whole access issue. I think we're really looking at how this can progress. And I think that's the big issue. What's that look like?
okay, thank you. Any questions?
A question I have is are the counties still participating in selling data rolls? Meaning every time a document's recorded, they sell the data, name and address to
Absolutely.
parties, and would that be a possibility of not doing that any longer to help protect identities? I just was wondering that quietly here, sitting by myself.
I think it's a great point. We certainly are looking at that early on, and this is not the first year that we've seen these privacy bills. We maybe 3-5 years now that we're seeing this. Early on, we identified that, recorders have regulatory obligations where they cannot post but we sell that information and then that person can do whatever they want with it. So we absolutely are incorporating that into whatever broad scope we come up with. Val has something to add to that?
I just want to comment on the data part where just to remember that our index is only a tool to find the record. It's not a replacement for it. So we do post our APN and with the owners, and that would be something we'd have to take off. And I think in counties that do post their APN, there will be a cost because that's going to push all of those customers into your offices,
lobbies.
to where into the lobbies and where they're going to end up with staff help. So I think that there is a cost to it, but probably counties that'll be impacted are counties like ours that do post it online. And just a reminder too that the recorder our ultimate responsibility is to ensure that we have trustworthy, reliable, and authentic records. And when you do start, I mean, I absolutely agree with what you're saying. We have to ensure that our records stay authentic, whether it's the official copy, like the truncated, the pre-truncated versions. We cannot have a record that has that where we've actually redacted something and you can't see what's underneath of that.
Now, thank you for adding that because we have thought about that there will be a surge of people coming in.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it costs to those people, right? If you
Yeah.
can go in line with information versus having to come into an office to get it, it's going to be an inconvenience. Like I said, the differentiation for someone who wants to legitimately utilize our information and needs
It's
to.
a big impact. Yeah.
There is that impact.
You may want to think about in your counties, other areas of your county that provide value-added services. Like our county surveyor has a very extensive multi-jurisdictional mapping database that is super cool, where you can like drill down to the actual parcel that has the APN online, and you'll be able to get, so they will have to peel off some of that if this passes, that some of your departments may not realize because they may not follow legislation like our departments do.
And I was just going to add, in case you didn't pick it up on the welcome table, the California Recorders Association did a great white paper on the importance of the public record. And we have some great copies there. Take one, read it, share. It's really, really important. It speaks to everything Garrett said and more. So just a little plug on that. Grab one on your way out. It's really good stuff.
Actually, also, as far as PRIA, sorry, Jamie. As far as PRIA, they're working on a white paper right now with the counties on globally on bulk sale of data records. PRIA is working on a white paper on that. I sit on one of the work groups when I have time, but it's putting together kind of what everyone's doing or what the thoughts are, and they're collecting a lot of information on the bulk resale. And I'm sure it's going to include a lot of these legal issues on what they can and cannot resell. So it really could change. I know that that's a source of revenue too. So all of a sudden not selling data, it could be very impactful. I'm just going to add that.
Yeah, we did a bulk paper 14 years ago with PRIA that needs the update. Lots have happened. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Val, because that stuck out last night when I was reading the bills. Like, come on, there's got to be an economic impact. So it will have an economic impact in other areas on the downflow. You're very correct. Thank you for pointing that out. Any other questions on this topic? Joni?
And as this moves forward this is my opinion, personal opinion. It seems like with some of the legislators that are working on this legislation, they might have the opinion that we're just trying to be obstinate and we don't want to change the way we do things. And they don't realize that it goes deeper than that. And we're not just trying to say, no, we can't just because we don't want to do one more thing, but it's something of great concern. So I think one of the good things with PRIA and the partnership is it is important that not just recorders, but other people that will be within other industries that might be affected by this kind of mirror what we're trying to say. We're not trying to say we don't want to, no, we won't, because we don't want to change our process. We're trying to maintain a record and make sure that it's available. And we think past just the initial process as to how it's going to affect the industry. So the more we can speak in unison to say they are right, because asking them to do this is going to be X, Y, Z. And to just show that it's not just the Recorders Association, not just the Assessors Association, that there is an impact. It will have an impact, and make sure that we're sharing that with the individuals that are putting through the legislation.
Thank you. We're going to move along to S6, remote online notarization. Uncle Ron, we want to call it Uncle Ron, because Uncle Ron's been around a long time in California. He's not playing around yet. Uncle Ron is playing around the country. We'll ask Garrett about that, but we're getting closer. And if Mr. Anderson here can give us an update, let me ask you a question. I'm going to put Bill on the spot here. Bill knows a lot what's going on with Uncle Ron. And so we have a general election year. And so right now what we're waiting on, just as a follow-up, we're waiting for the Secretary of State to provide, we're waiting for them to provide new security platforms so they can start providing the Ron remote online notification. We have a general election year. I think Dean Logan knows about that. It's a general election year, and working with the Secretary of State. Can you anticipate anything coming along this year?
Thanks for the question, Gene. The law has an effective date. It took effect, but the implementation date is 2030, with an off-ramp for the Secretary of State to push it back further if they're not ready. All right, so this year, I can only guess the Secretary of State is going to be busy getting past the general election. And then they're going to be thinking about rules. And it's going to take a while to adopt rules, because I think you all know how that goes here in California. And then the big thing is whether or not the Secretary's internal system to manage notaries, which they're going to have to totally replace, will be done in time for the 2030 implementation date. So if it's not, they'll push it back.
Do you think it'll go to 2030?
Well, I don't think it's going to happen before 2030.
Good answer. Garrett, how does Uncle Ron work in the rest of the other states?
Yeah, so our experience with Ron across the country has been extremely positive. We think it's what, especially during COVID, certainly it's really what our customers want now. They want to utilize technology. They want to do they want to sign all their loan documents from their house and conduct, all the notary activities online. So we think Ron is, we track it closely. We haven't seen any upticks in fraud. We think it has great technology and multi-factor authentication and different ways to prevent fraud. So we think it's worked incredibly well. We were obviously big proponents of the adoption of Ron in California. What we're doing now as an industry, really as a title insurance industry, is because of interstate recognition. I mean, we will do Ron signings with an out-of-state notary, licensed out-of-state notary for a California transaction. But if the notary act is occurring within California, obviously we can't accept, a Ron transaction, which is a little bit odd, right? And I think, not ideal. We'd love to see it get implemented sooner. We're dealing with it now, and as like you mentioned, the vast majority of the country now, Ron is becoming really, very kind of standard.
So as a corporate counsel for major corporation, it reduces risk.
Yeah, I don't know that we probably can't say that yet. Okay. But I think at least early returns are that we haven't seen an increase in risk. And I think ultimately, it may. Okay. It may be, we think it's at least equally as good of an offering as a live notary, and it remains to be seen. Obviously, we'd readjust if the fraudsters figure out ways to do end arounds on Ron. We might have to rethink our position, but right now our position is we think it works very, very well.
Thank you. Lisa, Monique, do you think, will Ron impact your workflow if it starts tomorrow? Not that it's going to start tomorrow, but if it started like next week, would it impact your workflow?
I don't think so. I think recorders in California are ready for it.
Mhm.
I think we're ready for it. We think it's going to help expedite. We're all electronic recording. It fits seamlessly into that process and those programs. So we're ready. We're waiting on Secretary of State, like Bill said.
Okay. That was a softball question. But I think we all know that it's already fitting in with our workflows. So I think it's very important to, to note that next time we'll have the Secretary of State at our next meeting. So, or a representative of that. So any other questions or comments on Ron? It's a quick one. We just want to give an update, and thank you, Mr. Anderson, for the update. Yes.
My county recorder, county clerk folks on the spot, it would be great, or was it possible that by the implementation date of 2030, we might have the ability here in California for notaries public to electronically file their bond and oaths of office with your offices, because those can be electronically notarized with Ron.
We'll be ready. Well, you can already electronically record the bond. I'm gonna phone in a friend, but the oath, Bill, you caught us off guard with that one. I think it will be equally, because the oath is actually filed, right? So we have to incorporate a way to feed those simultaneously to two separate systems in the back end. So I don't know, Jay, if you want to add anything to that. Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Being signed in. There would have to be some big legislation changes in order to make that happen. I don't think we're opposed to it. We're all about taking anything we can electronically.
Yes, yes.
I think there's yeah.
But I think a good thing that's happening in California right now is AB 2004, though, Eugene. And that is based on what Bill said. And what we recognize is that the laws for Ron are not happening until 2030 or thereafter. But there is currently in the legislation a bill floating to allow papering out. So that would allow a notary to certify it an electronic document and then bring it over our counters. And that would prevent some of the bottlenecks that Garrett spoke to.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. We have one last one we want to talk about. And I was wasn't sure how to, I'm glad we role played this at our Zoom last week or 2 weeks ago. There's a discussion of increasing the basic recording fees to be in line with the consumer price index. There hasn't been a recording fee increase in the state of California since the first iPad came out 14 years ago. Think about that. I mean, Deepwater Horizon, that big explosion in the Gulf, that happened 14 years ago. I mean, a lot of things have happened 14 years ago. And so when we bring up this, it's kind of sensitive because, hey, we got to raise prices, blah, blah, blah. But Monique made a great point, and so did you, Lisa, in that call. Please describe yours and the other county offices of self-sufficiency. That's a loaded question right there.
Well,
But tell me about self-sufficiency in your office.
well, I mean, first, I mean, the recorder, right? We run off of the fees that we take in. Of course, we have all these, sub funds and that we can use for certain things, but self-sufficiency for recorder is in jeopardy right now in Riverside County. And so where we're at as far as, what we're experiencing with the downturn in recordings, I mean, and a couple of years ago, we were up towards 700 something thousand. We're now at 300 something thousand. It's becoming very difficult to maintain or even keep our current workforce. We're having to say, hey, let's talk about what we do if we're not getting any help from the general fund because we're not self-sufficient right now. And so we have 6 offices. We're talking, do we need all these offices? You know, should we send our indexing to the Philippines? Just kidding. You know, just different things like that. You know, it's what does it look like? What does it look like to really just be at the base with our you know, the very minimal resources that we would need to run this without shutting down. So it's a concerning time, but you know, the fee increase, like you mentioned, that's our hope. That is the light at the end of the tunnel. And so that's what we're focused on, is the part of the Ledge Committee goes, definitely our priority.
Monique, I live in LA County. I read the Times. Both the city of LA and the county of LA, their salary increases going along too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just to meet the demand, the COLA, cost of living. So with those are increasing, and it just emphasizes more how that impacts your office.
Correct.
So you have that low recording volumes.
You have the low recording volumes. I think low recording volumes are not specific to Los Angeles County as an association. And we just so happen to have the president of our Recorders Association in the building. Mr. Logan is actually the president of California Recorders Association. And one of his priorities this year is definitely looking at the fees throughout the state. It's not a LA County issue. It is definitely a state issue. As we see numbers rise and drop, that's consistent throughout the counties because it's basically closely tied to the interest rates, right? So that happens across the state. So we are looking at it from an association's perspective to see how can we convey the message that, yeah, recorders charge, there's a fee of $75, there's additional $2 for DA, there's a whatever other fraud fee. Recorders, we are trying to develop a way to educate the public that those fees don't stay with recorders. So what is the real revenue that's coming into recorder versus being distributed out? So as we look at the fees throughout the state, we want to be able to educate people on to say, hey, we're charging 100%, but we're only keeping 10% of it. So that, you know, people are a little more sympathetic to say, we support that recorder. Because as Garrett said, it's the economy. How'd you say it? You said it so good. And what was that last plug?
The foundation of our economy.
That part. So, and then our white paper also speaks to that. So that information together should help educate people and understand that, yeah, we're charging maybe $150 for one page, but 20 is coming to recorder.
And I mentioned LA because I live in LA County, but the small counties, the rural counties, they're impacted quite more than this.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, this big cities, whatever, but yes, Val, please.
Just want to make sure, and I'm sure the time has been very, we have our quarterly team meetings in San Diego, and we've been very transparent with our group that we meet with. And I think the one thing that we talk, I mean, I agree 100% with what Lisa and Monique, except the Philippines part.
That was a joke.
Yeah.
Let the record reflect.
A number of counties, to balance budgets, what ends up happening is we don't fill vacancies.
Mm-hmm.
And the impact of that downstream is that we then have less educated, less trained, I should say trained staff, less tenured staff, because we're not able to, we always, in our groups, we talk about this is the perfect time to bring people on because you have the luxury of time to train. But unfortunately, with the low revenues, that impacts our ability to fill vacancies, which then, I mean, all of us in this room know how fast that tide turned in 2020 when those interest rates dropped. A lot of us, we couldn't keep up. We had vacancies and because of COVID, we weren't able to fill them as fast. And that tide turned so fast that it'll happen again. What goes up must come down.
Oh yeah.
It's going to go down. And if we are not financially solvent enough to maintain staff and bring on new staff and train them, we won't be ready. And so I think it's, the entire industry, it's important that everybody recognizes that keeping the recorders solvent and solid financially is in the entire industry's best interest.
Right. Absolutely,
Not that I'm
100%. And we're all experiencing the same thing. Like you said, it's hard to find people. You train them, you spend all these months training them, and then they leave on to some other job. And that's why we're really looking at AI to see, because we know that we're not going to have all these long timers like we're here, we've been here forever, right? I mean, that just doesn't happen. It's not happening anymore. And so that's why we have to figure out another solution. Maybe AI becomes this long-term employee that has all this knowledge. And so definitely, Val, great point.
Actually, I have a question for Garrett, just kind of, I didn't ask. Do you foresee, or do you, I don't know, crystal ball, but interest rates going back up anytime soon? I know the Fed kept a freeze on it.
Down.
Recently.
Down.
We obviously, we track that very closely. The entire title insurance industry and really the real estate industry is almost perfectly tied to interest rates, right? So we obviously track that very closely. We were very optimistic that we were going to see 3 rate cuts, really looking in Q3 and Q4 this year. I think that's probably less likely now. I think now we are optimistic to maybe see 1, hopefully 2 rate cuts, probably, at the back half of this year, but it's anybody's guess. I think we've been nothing but wrong about trying to guess what it's going to do for the past 10 years.
Right.
Yeah, who knows? But we're optimistic.
Lisa, you made a comment that interesting that, there's consequences if there's no fee increase. And you mentioned, gosh, we have 6 offices. Do we need all 6 offices? So if there's no fee increase, the scenario could be, hey, we might have to shut down a few offices.
Could be.
So that's going to disenfranchise the public.
Well, at the same time, our goal is to always, bring the services to the public. And so if we're shutting down offices, you can bet at the same time, we're looking at other areas to gain efficiencies using technology. And so as we close offices, we're probably going to still be able to provide those same services, but electronically. We're talking about things like, do a pop-up shop. San Bernardino has their mobile unit. There's other things that we can do. I mean, it's going to look different. It's going to look different. And I think that we really have to start thinking about that. Having offices, having people come in person and all of that. I mean, we barely have employees that want to come into the office. I mean, so, we're just trying to think ahead, what does that look like for recorders? But we're trying our best. Yes, we're trying our best not to have it impact the way that we serve the public.
Yeah, the reality of it is that we're in a really good environment right now. I mean, not budgetarily, but in terms of serving the industry with the numbers, it looks great. But like Lisa and Val are saying, there are going to be some consequences when those numbers go back up, because we are at a place in our offices where we are able to sustain this status quo, not that status quo, but this one. So there will be impacts.
If the interest rates went down next week, would your offices be ready?
We would probably be discussing overtime.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually, and I want to compliment the counties on that, because if you think about the peaks and valleys, economic peaks and valleys that we're all living through, there's employment peaks and valleys of staffing and everything else. And how do you manage that? And so I have to applaud Val on what she did in San Diego. I mean, you did some amazing stuff of retaining employees, giving special projects and things like that. Now, when it's going to go back up, it is kind of scary. Now, at least we have time, according to Garrett, because he predicts everything, right? But anyway, we do have some time. But point being is that we are vulnerable to the interest rates. We are kind of downhill on that. And with the recording fees being at they are when the first iPad came out, that's a problem. I mean, it's employee retention as well. You want to have that. You want to have the flexibility with that. If services get compromised, Garrett, if services get compromised and there's slower recordings, like it's just a slow, and volumes go up. And so now you have a week turnaround, 2-week turnaround. Now it goes to 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. How does that impact your offices?
Yeah, there's a significant impact. And I'm not an underwriter. We have Chris Holtzman here is from our underwriting group. So Chris, I might ask you to comment more on this topic, but we as a title insurance company, we provide something called gap coverage, right? So that's That's coverage from the date the transaction closes until that deed or mortgage or whatever it is recorded. So if, let's say that there was a 3-week delay, right? So we would insure that mortgage on day one. And then by the time that's recorded 3 weeks later, if there was an intervening lien recorded, like a tax lien or a spousal lien or some other involuntary lien, or maybe even a fraudulent lien, we would insure over that. So we'd pay a claim to pay off and eliminate that lien in favor of that new, buyer, right? So that's what we call gap coverage. So certainly the tighter those timeframes are from the close of the transaction till that is publicly available, providing constructive notice to the world, that's, very good for us. That minimizes our gap, risk. Chris, did I screw that up first?
You nailed it. You're on the
I have a question for Chris. Chris, how would a delay in recording impact TRID? The rules relating to TRID and the 3-day where you have to rewrite the whole packages, or am I asking the person the wrong?
Heard.
Okay.
And it's more so the after the fact of recording the mortgage. But in some jurisdictions, I'm thinking like the Northeast, it is sometimes common to record in a mortgage transaction, a mortgage prior to funding. And so in certain scenarios like that, the delay could really impact it. But if we are aware of a huge gap, it's more likely that we're going to fund and then insure the gap, as Garrett talked about.
Interesting. Learn something new.
I want to point that out too, because for the counties and the partnership with the title companies and escrow is if there's compromised services and you're returning a document, that's more risk to your business partners in the title community. So that's why the fee increase is very important, because it won't compromise the services that you allow them or you provide them. So I know this is early talking points that we brought this up, but this is the value of this forum right here, is because we can have these talking points jointly together. When we talked a few weeks ago, I didn't really realize the gap insurance till you brought that up, and I was like, wow, that does have impact on our business partners. So I thank you for pointing that out. With a longer turnaround, if this happens, that's going to impact, documents going to the assessor's office with the P core and everything else. It does flow downhill even to your office, Nicole.
Yes, and I appreciate that, because we always like to have our public service announcement moments. A lot of times what's happening is there's a big consequence, obviously, to that owner. We'll be getting records later. That means that when we're processing it through, they're going to be getting tax bills later, which means that by the time they're getting them, they just totally don't understand. There's always the communication piece of it anyway, right? Supplemental tax bills, et cetera. But also it creates huge issues for us. And one of the things for my PSA is legal descriptions, investing, that becomes really important for us. And so, like I said, I have my ownership services group here. A lot of times people are talking about what those delays are. I will say the upside of us having smaller, fewer documents is obviously we're able to process those documents more quickly. But when it comes to our complex documents, lots of times what we're dealing with is that delay of us getting information. We're reaching back out because there's something that's wrong with that document because of the chain of title in terms of our records, and we can't resolve that. So there's big implications for that. But I was thinking about it just in terms of the economic piece of it, which is really interesting is when we look at this in terms of a production point, it's great. But the bigger part we're not thinking about is when we have fewer documents that are being recorded, we start talking about just county and general fund and services, property tax are a big part of it. So that again turns around on the other side and kind of bites us in a different way, because if we don't have that revenue, again, we're not trying to be that person in terms of the assessor's office that's revenue seeking. There is a close correlation between property taxes and the revenue that we get locally. So, as we look at this, and we've talked about the staffing pieces of it, this is something that we are really working diligently at, is how do you retain staff? Because we're going to work these documents. We want to make sure that our records are correct when people are looking at them, which is really important. But it's a challenge on both sides of it. So although I'm not speaking directly, I am rah-rahing you for the recorder's fees. I understand what that means when you're trying to basically fund your department, make sure you have the most knowledgeable staff that are available to do the work and have the ability to retain them. and, you know, make these moves. So while we're going to use all the resources, AI, et cetera, to try to make differences, we still are very diligent about public service and how we can, you know, provide that. And it ties into all of these things.
Yes.
Great. Do we have any questions?
Anything.
Anything. But and again, I was talking about the fee a couple weeks ago. Anytime you bring up fee increases, and as soon as we talk this all out, it impacts everybody, impacts the public, impacts risk. It's going to impact assessments. And especially on the assessments, it impacts, you know, essential services, school districts and things like that. So it does all flow downhill. And I was glad to see when we brought up the topic that we do need to consider this bill to increase the fees, because it is going to compromise all that. So yes.
All the cities coming up with these new taxes that they are inventing out of thin air, that the counties are responsible for collecting. Are you not getting a piece of any of that for handling those millions and millions and billions or whatever dollars it is? You're not getting any of that money?
In Los Angeles County, we do. We, our ordinance cities, they're called ordinance tax. And what we're seeing in LA County specifically is a tiered system, a very, what they're referring to as a mansion tax. So when the cities are incorporating those in Los Angeles County or within Los Angeles County, then we're taking a administrative fee and issuing an MOU.
Okay, good. I was about to join up and start fighting.
So, but we should mention that Recorders Association is also looking at that, because it's really, that administrative piece is not codified in the law, but there's no exclusion either, so.
Somebody on the chat I just saw pop up, there is not a bill number yet tied to any fee increase for recording fee at this time.
No, that is correct.
Yeah.
And we like to call it cost recovery.
Cost recovery, yes.
Yeah, I'll just to build on Lisa's point. I mean, I think it's important that when we talk about this, especially in this economic climate with the state budget and county budgets, is yes, it's a fee increase, but it's also really about aligning the fee to the market, so that we don't get in a situation where it's been a decade since the fee's been assessed, and so that we don't see huge increases in recording fees in the future. If we align it to the CPI, the bill language that we're working on as an association includes a fee study, so it's not just this across the board, you know, large swag trying to get more funding. And from the county perspective, maybe this isn't the audience, but for the county perspective, it's also recognizing that all of the other things that are supported by recording fees are devalued when we have to go to the general fund to support our operations. So it's taking away from other critical county services. So this is about right sizing the fee structure that hasn't been addressed for 10 years, but also making it so it adjusts on a market basis going forward, and we don't have to go and run a bill through the legislature and wait for elected officials in a bad economy to have to take a vote on a fee bill, right? So it's a important policy perspective to talk about some, maybe not a fee increase, but a fee alignment and a sustainability feature for the market.
And another thing I thought about regarding cost recovery, you know, we have these funds again that are used for specific things, you know, by law, lets you know what they can be used for. If your sub funds are not growing, you know, maybe you're going to have a difficult time doing things like converting records when there's certain laws like AB 1466 where it would be more efficient if you're going to get it done by the time you're, you know, whatever date you have in your timeline, is to get these records converted. So it is impacting us, even being able to meet certain legislation the way that we would like to, at least when we think about those records that are not converted and how long it would take us to run through those certain processes, like with AB 1466. So there's just a lot with it, like Dean said, with cost recovery.
Any other questions regarding anything county title escrow related? Wait, Val, wait for your mic. Then everyone virtually can hear you too.
I just want to, Diego County is hosting the 2024 County Recorder Association Conference in September at the Bahia. It starts on the Tuesday after Labor Day. And we welcome everybody, industry, as well as county recorders. And Bill, I hope you're going to be there. You're just up the road. So it'll be a really fun time. And we're also having an event at our new county archive. So if you're curious to see how the counties archive their records, and come down.
Nicole, somebody virtually would like to ask you a question. I did not see who it was. So whoever would like to ask Nicole, you can unmute yourself. I didn't see who it was.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great.
Dan.
I asked the question. Yeah, the question is for Nicole, and it has to do with the assessor archive maps. The archived room got closed down a few years ago, and I heard a rumor that those maps are being digitized. Is that true? And when will they be available, if so?
They take a lifeline too, but yes, we
Yeah.
obviously did have a
Eugene
big,
was here. You can
we had a
answer.
big flood, but we are really working very diligently to work out through those records and digitize them. Eugene, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, there's about 600,000 large format plat maps that were infected, and then another 700,000 11 by 17. There will be about 300 of the 600,000 plat maps that will be imaged by June. And getting available to the public, that's we're still trying to figure that out. But at the same time, records requests will start going faster because they're being digitized and more efficiently. I think there's a few out there that are 6 months back, but outside of that, we're trying to keep it down within 3 months. But we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Great, thank you.
Okay, well, let's give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you guys so much. I think that was, I don't know, I would think that was our best PRIA session yet, right? Good job, partners. So I want to just thank everybody once again for being here in person and those that attended virtually. I never saw exactly how many. Ms. Garcia, since you're on, write a note of how many people are on, because I can't really see how many are attended virtually. Yeah, we want to thank you again. So next time, next time we try to do, and obviously thank you to First American for this beautiful.
I just wanted to thank everybody for coming and coming in person. I know virtual is always the option, but it's always great to see you. And it's been truly our honor hosting you all.
And for the virtual team, Tracy had us breakfast burritos, croissants, like
Oh, you gotta come in
coffee,
person. Come in
and had,
person. Come in person.
and it's just, thank you
Yeah.
again. Thank you, First American. I want to remind you real quick, the annual or the summer conference again, August 20th, 22nd, Cleveland, mark the date. One of the things I'm asking, I forgot to get a QR code, but we'll email it out to you. Join PRIA. Join it on an individual basis. It's $50. Even if you have a county and you're on a county, pay for it for your employees. If you're on the, pay for your employees for First American, $50, and you have access to all the content of PRIA, all the white papers, all the discussions for the past 22 years. Great resources, and you have free webinars on top of that. So we'll send you out a QR code just real quick. I want to take that plug in. And I want to thank, yes, Cleveland rocks. I also want to thank Jamie, because Jamie's done a lot in putting this together. So we really enjoy doing this. We really do. It's great topics. It's a collaborative approach. We engage each other, and it's just a great forum to do all this. And thank you again for having us and joining us.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
Jean.
I'm safely. Hi, virtual folks.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Garrett.
panel, yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Did you get one of our speakers?
No, I was like, oh, where's my cup?
Thank you so much.
I did. It's over there. Thank you.
So thank